Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton and Greg White back with you here at Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well, and back is right, isn't it? Finally, back in the States.
Back from your sabbatical and your on assignment, right? You're on assignment the whole month, right?
On assignment, yes, and I did my assignment well,
Yes, you did. All
whatever it
right.
was.
Some folks have heard some of the highlights in some of your
That's true. Yes,
appearances
if
since
you
you've been
caught the
back.
buzz Monday, yep, right.
Speaking of highlights, big show here today. Back by popular demand, we got our friends from OMNIA Partners. Greg, we're going to be focused on the wonderful world of procurement. And in particular, lots of P's. In particular, we're going to be offering up expertise and actionable insights on revolutionizing your purchasing process in this current market. Greg, should be a great show, huh?
Yeah, and perfect environment to be learning tips like this, right? It's volatile, questionable,
It's
right? To say the
definitely.
least, right? I mean, yesterday we thought we were headed into recession. Today we realized that in the States anyway, today we learned that the GDP grew much more than predicted in the previous quarter. So crazy times.
It is crazy. VUCA, the acronym VUCA comes to mind, VUCA, all that and a lot more. But hey, lean on us as we offer up expertise from folks that have been there and done it to help you guide through your challenges when it comes to your own global supply chain ecosystem. And today we got John Lander with OMNIA Partners, who's going to be joining us momentarily. But before we do, I want to say hello to a few folks. Greg, we got John Peterson tuned in from Marietta, Georgia. John, welcome back. Enjoy your perspective.
I owe John a burger. That's right. We were talking about this while I was still in Europe.
That's right. Absolutely.
Oh, man.
The world gets smaller.
A burger sounds really good too. Yeah.
Derek tuned in from Dallas, Texas. We were just talking about Dallas in the pre-show. Derek, great to have you here via LinkedIn. Yeah. Ahmad from Egypt via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Ahmad. Welcome everybody. And folks, we want to hear from you. So we're going to work our way through the next hour. Should be a great conversation on procurement leadership and a lot more. And we'd love to hear from you as we work our way through the conversation with our guests. Okay, Greg, yes. Are you ready to bring on the one and only, the pride? I'm going to call it the pride of Pittsburgh, PA, but now of Franklin, Tennessee, if I've got that right. Are you ready to bring on our guest?
Yes, in both worthy cities.
Outstanding cities.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Greg, with no further ado, I want to welcome in John Lander, Executive Vice President, Sales with OMNIA Partners. John, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Wonderful. Great to have you here. Really enjoyed our pre-show session, haven't we, Greg?
Yeah, no question. We talked a little bit of football, and I think it's looking up for 2 out of 3 of us, Scott.
So let's demystify that. So John is a big Steelers fan. Greg, right, of course, big Chiefs fan. And I'm a bandwagon Falcons fan. And hey, we got to be better than last year, I'm hoping. So we'll see. We shall see. All right. And by the way, Josh Goody tuned in from Seattle. Great to have you back as always, Josh. All right. So John Lander, we've already kind of established your Pittsburgh ties. Of course, big Steelers fan. We were talking about Priani Brothers in the pre-show. But I want to switch gears with this fun warm-up question. And I want to talk technology with you and Greg. So, folks, did you know on this day, June 29th, back in 2007, the Apple iPhone goes on sale for the first time? So downplayed by many technology analysts and gurus globally, it only sold 1 million phones in the first 74 days. And as we all know, in many ways, it's changed the world, right? So with that as a backdrop, we're going to have a little fun with this. So, John, we'll start with you. What is one modern technology that you now could not live without?
So several come to mind.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with sticking with the iPhone.
Okay.
And first thing that comes to my mind, I got 4 girls.
Wow.
In high school and just starting college. So I can't live without, we have a little app on our iPhone that tracks where they are, how fast they drive, and where they're located at all times. So
Family 360,
I could not live without
something like that. Is that what it is, John?
What'd you say, Greg?
Family 360 or something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, okay.
So,
very useful, parents.
Yes, try to keep an eye on them.
That's good. Big Brother's always looking out.
Yes.
And we're finding new ways and more effective ways of doing that day in and day out. Greg, that's going to be a tough one to top. Your thoughts on your modern technology you couldn't go without here?
Yeah, I would have to say, for me, not the most modern, but let's just call it any mode of independent travel. I just spent a month on maybe one of the best public transportation systems on the planet in Switzerland. And while it is super convenient, fast to everything, and of course, being Swiss, runs like a Swiss watch. I mean, on time is on time.
That's great.
I envied a little bit some of the folks that got to drive the roads to where we were going and stop to see so many of the sights, the Alps and things like that. So I think it gave me a newfound appreciation for, I'll just call it independent transportation, whether that's a car or bike or whatever, right?
Love it, man. The stories keep coming from this grand sabbatical, John, from Greg over here. And hey, there's a lot of fans, looks like, of this Life 360. Paula, great to have you here. She's a big fan. Barb, great to see you, Barb. One of our faves, longtime faves. No parent should go without it. Hey, who would have thunk? And looks like we've got 49ers fans, Chiefs fans. We got Justin from Texas in the house, and Nicole, a fellow Steelers fan.
There you go.
Everybody.
Everyone's covered.
Yeah, that's right. Coast to coast, really around the globe. All right. So we had a little fun with the technology conversation. So let's get into why we're all here, right? And I want to start, John and Greg. John, I want to start with your professional journey and your expertise and experiences. A lot of folks may not know that prior to joining OMNIA Partners, you had a successful 20-year career at Office Depot. So if you could, when you reflect back on that, what's one or two things that were maybe some of your favorite experiences during that time spent with Office Depot?
Yeah, I think if you think about it, moved 11 times. So it was unbelievable to start at the customer and move into management and continue to take over different territories. And I always spent a lot of time taking over the worst territories that are out in the marketplace. So learned how to retool, rebuild, build culture, kind of all those fun things are some of the best memories. And it's really what benefits me today, talking to our current members and our suppliers. A lot of times they use me and kind of my past on what should you do and not do. So I think that's probably the big highlight for me from Office Depot standpoint.
I love that. And Greg, one of the things I heard there, if I heard John right, is that, taking on those underperforming regions. John, is that right?
100%.
And kind of becoming a turnaround specialist. That we need more of that in business leadership. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's a thankless job, not to John's scale, but I did that for an auto parts retail chain. And John, I don't know if you experienced this challenge. You probably work for a more sophisticated company, but you would go in and fix a store or a district or a region and leave and go on to the next crappy region just in time for the new manager to get the bonus you had set him up for.
Exactly.
So we had to have a serious compensation discussion when I started doing that, because I was like, I'm doing all the hard work and they're making all the money. Well, but yeah, that I got to tell you, I guess that explains why 11 moves, right? There's a lot of opportunity in retail.
I was always the one to say yes. And probably my craziest one is I was in Pittsburgh, just had twins, they're 4 months old. My family's in Pittsburgh, never thought I'd leave. I was at a pretty young age, and president of Office Depot comes to me and says, you know what? You're a pretty aggressive young kid. Would you move to Boston? I said, yeah, I'll move to Boston, and didn't realize that Staples and W. Mason was in Boston. So took over the region and fought that fight for 4 years or so. So that kind of catapulted my career right there.
Well, you moved to Boston, have green eggs and ham on a train. It was always yes. Sign me up. And speaking, Josh says, going off on what John said, you do the jobs that people don't want to do, and you will always have a job.
That's 100%. A good point. That is an excellent point. Yeah.
Well, and so reflecting again, one final note, John, on what you shared about your career. I bet that comes into it's very handy that all that experience and those results and those outcomes you're driving and what you do now with OMNIA Partners, where you meet your customers and figure out what their priorities are and where the challenges and help them get to the next level. We'll touch on that towards the end of today's conversation. All right. So John, let's kind of switch gears here. So as we've established, you're working with all the rock and roll stars out there, shaking hands, making business happen, making things happen, moving mountains. So as you're having these conversations with these business leaders out there, what are a few of the priorities that you're seeing them have right now?
Yeah. So if you think about, OMNIA Partners, I spend a lot of time with members, which are direct customers. And I spend a lot of time with our supplier executives. So I was with CEO this Monday up in New Jersey for one of our suppliers, several top executives that I spend a lot of my time with. And, costs are climbing. We spend a ton of time on, costs are going through the roof. People are struggling to find talent. So I am, I've known a lot of people through my career. So I do help a lot of our suppliers and members try to find folks. And I know my team does that really well. We're great networkers across different suppliers and members. We deal in the public sector side and in the private sector. So I get a lot of questions on, man, all this federal funding in the public sector, should I be shifting my resources in that direction to try to capitalize on some of those funds that are out there? So, and then the other thing, you just saw the acquisition we just made, potentially with Premier, and, a lot of people are going and focusing back on their core competencies. And I'm starting to see that from a lot of our suppliers, that the flavor was, hey, let's spread out, let's get into everything. And, sometimes the beachheads get a little weakened and people start to pull back and really, double down in markets like this on what their core competencies are.
John, a lot of good insights there from what you're seeing and doing. Greg, your thoughts on some of what John just shared?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a volatile marketplace for a few years, and no one better than a problem solver, right? Someone who really falls in love with the problem or fixing the problem, to be present for such a thing, between the employment environment and the let's call it fluctuating economics.
Right.
And then so many companies retooling, it's a ripe environment for companies both to experience opportunities and challenges, and having someone who can help guide them through it, who's experienced those ups and downs and overcome them is really incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to have a John Lander in their network, right?
Yes.
So let's switch gears. Let's talk about the wonderful world of procurement. So John, procurement is cool these days, kind of like supply chain. That's a good thing. That's definitely good news. So what do you see out there in your work and with your customers and in different markets? What are some common themes in terms of what are procurement professionals, their top 3 pain points, I'll call it, in the current market? Let's start with the first one. What would that be?
Yeah, I think the first one we'll start out with is just procurement in general is just underinvested. You just don't see folks adding a ton of procurement professionals. I think that is, where we kind of step in and where we can help.
Yep.
So I think that's probably the first bucket I would say is a big one. There's a lot that ties into that, but that's a key piece.
So John, that's a great call out. So Greg, coming in there, while procurement is critical in global supply chain, has been for years, John, that's a great call out. Companies haven't been investing in procurement talent and technology and wherewithal as much as maybe they should have, especially coming into the last couple of years, right? Your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where to draw the line between supply chain and procurement. I think they're so tightly intertwined. I mean, unless you're talking about, even if you're talking about brooms and mops, but they are so tightly intertwined, and both have had that challenge of having the respect that they deserve for the impact that they have on the company. John just alluded to the challenging employment environment. We were effectively in supply chain and procurement at full employment, or actually we were below full employment. What did we have? Like 5 million open jobs among 44 million professionals. So we had over a 10% unemployment or You know what I'm saying? we had 10% of the jobs open, and now there are more of these jobs than ever. And yet, I think companies started to, during the pandemic, they started to realize the impact. But I think, Scott, and I don't know, John, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. We have seen from the supply chain side, for sure, a lot of backsliding, where you got promoted to the grown-ups table, and then volatility started to come down, and slowly that prioritization of supply chain and procurement, from our point of view, companies kind of went back to the old normal, right?
The couple things that I see quite a bit is, and maybe it's not even less people in procurement, but people are reallocating their talent and their resources. So they're focusing on strategic supply chain initiatives that are in the marketplace. And so maybe they're pulling a few folks that are really good in procurement and they're sliding them over into supply chain. And they're looking for our services to try to help backfill and just fill some of those gaps that might be there based off of expertise. And so I'd say I joined OMNIA 6 years ago. I see a pretty, public sector. Look, they're way into this GPO concept and way down that path. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. Over the last 5 years, or 6 years, I've seen a major shift, even in the private sector. Even large Fortune 1,000 companies are starting to move in this direction and saying, hey, we're going to focus on strategic initiatives for us, indirect procurement. OMNIA, what can you do for me in the marketplace?
That's wonderful. That's just the first one. First of a couple of the pinpoints we're going to hit. Procurement is under-resourced. And John Peterson echoes y'all's comments. Procurement supply chain, John Peterson says, has always been underrepresented and the first to see cuts when times get tough, despite the direct to bottom line impact. Amanda, great to have you with us. Amanda agrees with him. And Richard says, hey, the old adage, do more with less, has never been more true. Great point there, Richard. All right, so the first one that we're tackling, procurement is under-resourced. Secondly, John, when we think of the top three of the top pain points for procurement professionals, what's number two?
Yeah, thinking about number two, I'd say what we're hearing a ton right now is this inflation, deflation situation that we're in. Prices were cruising, they're going way up. Now I think you hear different categories are coming down, different areas, freight's coming down. And I think a lot of procurement folks that we're dealing with on a daily basis, like, where am I? Like, what is the new normal, or where should I be? And I think there's a lot of uncertainty in that space. And we're having tons of conversations around that today.
I bet. It's like nailing Jello to the wall a little bit. Greg, what about you? You were just talking about kind of the fluctuation. Your thoughts on inflation, deflation?
It's a tough environment because, if just look at the base kind of standard compensation model for procurement professionals. It's get that extra 20%, right, and get that bonus or whatever it is. And if you're having these price fluctuations and you've got challenges with fulfillment or new suppliers or suppliers that for at least a short time were somewhat in the driver's seat because of supply chain issues and that sort of thing, it's a very, very tough position to be in. And that particular perspective, that particular thing that is compensated in supply chain or in procurement is similar to what's compensated in supply chain, and that is reduce cost at all cost,
100%.
right? And it has occurred, at least in supply chain, to the detriment of stability, reliability, speed, right? Sustainability, other ethics kind of things that have really created instability and fragility in supply chain. And I think we have to examine some of those things that make it difficult to operate in these kind of environments. And I think I've said this before, John, when talking to some of your colleagues. I think the benefit of a GPO is somewhat plausible deniability, right? You don't have to have that battle because that battle has already been fought and won, and it's done with a measure of leverage and partnership that a single company can't accomplish. because, at OMNIA or really any GPO, you've got hundreds, maybe thousands of companies who have the same suppliers. And when you pool that, just like anything else, you get these shared economies of scale. And that is so incredibly powerful and stabilizing, even in an unstable environment.
And the other thing I'll throw on is compliance is a piece of that. So what we're seeing from a compliance standpoint is, say you had a contract over the last couple of years, deflation comes in.
Yeah.
Now you got all the guys picking away at all the different locations, and then all of a sudden your contract isn't compliant. And we spend a lot of time helping our members drive compliance with inside their particular contract that they're focused on. Because we have a nationwide sales force to be able to do that. But it's unstable right now for sure.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting as both of you are sharing, and Greg, especially as you were offering up that theme, both of you are offering up the theme of strength in numbers. What comes to my mind is one of our favorite guests, Dan Reeve, from our friends at Esker John. And he likes to say, moving at the speed of 1,000 gazelles. And it always brings us such a wonderful vision. But that strength in numbers, to Greg, your point of not having to fight that battle, you can lean on that community, that ecosystem that's been there and done it. Immense value there when it comes to especially inflationary environment that we have been in. So let's talk about the third one, because I think we've saved perhaps the best for last, especially one where maybe we have the most control over, arguably. So what's the third pain point we want to touch on, John?
Yeah, the big one we're seeing a lot, and we're investing a ton in this space, is spend visibility. So you're looking at all the acquisitions. We're doing a ton of acquisitions. You got tons of ERP systems that are sitting out there. How do you get that spend? How do you know that you're really driving contract compliance? And then when you do that, you have multiple contracts in the same categories. And we're doing a lot of work around spend visibility. We're trying to develop new tools. We have partners like Spend HQ that we partner with we're trying to help our members the most that we can, trying to get quick wins. Folks are with everything that's happening now, give me 10 quick wins and how can your contracts benefit me? So we're just want to let you know, we're investing a ton in this space. We're going to get better and better. We got data scientists that we have there. We got AIs coming down the path too, that I think is going to really generate a lot of help and savings to our members as well. So exciting part. And I think that's a key piece of the puzzle for the future.
It is. It's a shorter list of things that y'all aren't doing right now, John. Greg, we've all, as we established, I think before John joined us, we've had dozens of conversations with John and his colleague. And it's been really interesting to see the path that OMNIA Partners, the exciting path that the company's been on. But Greg, out of all of that, especially when it comes, I'm going to tie it back to spend visibility, because if we can't see it, what can we do with it, right? I mean, I hate to be so simple about it, but Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, you can only manage what you can measure, right? And that's hard to do when you've got internal challenges like compliance between your facilities, or even between your buyers or whoever you might have on your internal team. It's the challenging situation of how can you expect to sort of tame the wilderness of your vendor environment if your own house is not in order internally. So it's it's hard to see so many things when you're in an environment. I mean, even if you've got some level of visibility, when things are moving so fast, like we just talked about, right, with the inflationary and deflationary cycles, the apparent slowing and then speeding of economics that changes a ton of dynamics. The questions around what external and internal market forces are going to do to impact that going forward. Even if you have visibility, and this is one of my pet peeves in a lot of cases, you still don't have answers.
Right.
All you can see in many cases is that everything's messed up. And what I think, the kind of benefits that we should be able to expect from not just the technologies, John, you've talked about there with AI and ML and all, and just technology in general, but also just the power of that group, right? Is to be able to be presented with solutions, not just clarity of that you have problems and what they are and where they are. But today we should be able to expect some guidance on what the solution is, how to attack that problem, and how to solve it.
100%.
Man, the two of y'all just shared so much. I want to talk about. I wish we had 3 hours with you, John. Two quick call outs. I love, Greg, that visibility, but not answers, because you got to have both. It's such a great call out. And then, John, to your point, I love how you're looking at quick wins while you're probably building strategic wins. 100%. Right? You can have both, right?
You have to have both, really. I mean, a plan, the first thing that changes in a plan is the plan.
Right.
And the goals are never as easy to attain as they seem when you write the plan. So you really have to almost plan for those quick, we love to say low-hanging fruit, right? But those quick wins that give people hope that things will get better and help them continue to buy into the longer-term solutions and more difficult problems to solve in the greater plan going forward.
Well said. All right. So much to talk about, so little time. And I think the other theme that I think folks need to recognize with what John and Greg have been sharing is, hey, you got to help yourself before you can help others. It's like the oxygen mask theme that we heard so much about in the last 2 or 3 years. And you can do that by leveraging trusted resources, like we've talked about a lot in these conversations. All right. So, John Lander.
Yeah.
We've talked about the top three of the top pain points for procurement professionals in the current market. That is a mouthful, John and Greg. Let me tell you.
Say that again fast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I got my 12 cups of coffee in this morning. And I still wasn't prepared. Let me do this before we move into. We're going to get some good news from John in terms of how we can address those, especially how GPOs can address those. But before I do, let me just share a couple of these comments here. So Amanda's with us via LinkedIn. And I'm going to drop this so we don't cut John off. But she says, this is quoting a current member of the OMNIA Partners community. Quote, spend visibility is step 1, or rather step 0 in starting and running a sourcing organization. It's mandatory because it's your playbook. Without it, it's like trying to get somewhere without a roadmap. You're just lost in the dark, end quote. What a great comment. That brings a lot of visuals. John says, master data management is critical to drive visibility and compliance. Single source of truth. And then finally, Josh, one of our favorites here, Greg, everyone has a plan until you get hit in the mouth. I think it's to finish that off. Yeah. Get visibility for realistic goals.
The great philosopher, Mike Tyson.
That's right. And we'll try to get some of these other comments in just a second. But John, I want to switch over to some good news, because with let's talk about how, with your expertise and what you see, whether they're successful organizations or whether, playing on that earlier theme, organizations looking for a turnaround, right? Regardless where you are in your journey, how can organizations approach these pain points leveraging GPOs? So let's start with the first one. Procurement is under-resourced.
Yeah. So, look, this is where we really fit in. So many folks are moving, pushing people. Strategic folks don't have the budget to hire more folks. And if you look at OMNIA Partners, we got 150 plus contracts on the private sector side. We got 600 plus on the public sector.
Okay.
We leverage those two sides together, $26 billion in buying power. So, we're usually most suppliers' largest customer. So I always like to tell folks, I know you're dealing with a sales rep out in the field or a regional vice president. Most of the time I'm dealing with the CEO of that particular supplier, and all things don't fit in a box. Let us help you. Let me help you try to figure out whatever your problem is, and we'll try to find a solution for you for that particular problem. And the best way that we come in, and we to your point, we try to hit quick wins right away, show value quick. And then we build a wave plan over the course of the next 3 years. What RFPs do you have coming up? How can we fit into it? It's not like we're coming in and saying we're going to take everything over. We want to be very strategic on where we fit into your overall plan. And the best thing of it is, look, I spent a lot of time, ran North America for Office Depot, Office Max. I was involved with the Staples merger. That didn't happen. And guess what we had? We had consultants for days. And consultants cost a fortune. And guess how much we cost to do all this work for you?
It's
Zero.
free.
It's free.
And we're going to touch on that. And so folks, stay tuned because we're going to give y'all some resources, including one of our favorites that John just touched on. Hey, so John let the cat out of the bag, Greg. He let the cat out of the bag. We'll go grab it in a minute. But hey, okay. Greg, I want to touch on that. 26 billion, Greg, 26 billion in purchasing power. Speak to how you can leverage all of that, and John and the whole team and really the community to attack this lack of investment in procurement know-how.
There are less than a fistful of major companies that can attest that amount of spend, right? So everyone who can't should be part of this group. I mean, it's just so simple to me. You know, I think about the book Good to Great, right? The whole hedgehog story, do what you're best at, right? Do one thing, make it what you're best at, and make your living doing it, right? Read the book if you haven't. Jim Collins has written a couple of great business books, must reads, Built to Last and Good to Great. He's always 2 words on either side of 2. So it's not true, but those are my 2 favorites. But I think though companies are more and more discovering that they're great at what they're great at. You know, I've long had the philosophy that companies, retailers particularly, and certainly brands should just do what they're really good at, which is, you might argue against this. Never had a retailer on who could argue this whenever I say it, John. So if I'm wrong, don't feel shy. Tell me. I've always felt like retailers are really good at merchandising and selling, right? And they're lousy generally at supply chain. And so many of them, especially as more and more online retail occurs, so many of them are starting to outsource these things that they're not great at and do only what they're great at, right? Be the front end, be the analysis of fashion and trend and need in the marketplace, and then let somebody else figure out how to get it there. And I think this is a great example. I think these GPOs and in procurement in particular, because you can get massive scale like this, and that's so powerful. It's a great example of do it. I mean, I don't even know why companies still do it themselves.
So, John, I love starting with that first one, starting with leveraging the power of 26 billion. And I love how you and your team are escalating those conversations to the CEO's office, as you mentioned, and your consultants for days phrase, I think resonated with a lot of folks. And you know what? Not to beat up on consultants, because if it's not consultants, it could be other resources that folks are paying for and they're not doing anything for them. And so having that trusted third party, been there, done that voice is so important. Okay. If that's just the first one, John, I can't wait to get your take on how to, I wish I'd spent more time studying for economics, microeconomics in college. I was horrible. So when it comes to inflation,
could end that sentence without all those qualifiers for me.
I sure could.
Wish I spent more time studying.
Oh man. So when it comes to this inflationary, deflationary environment, what's the good news there? How can folks fight back and win?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things there. One is, since we do not charge anything for our services, whether you want us to do assessments on any particular category or contract that you have, think about that. So if you're unsure where you are today, call OMNIA Partners. We will absolutely be able to do assessment versus our contract, which we think we have the leverage. We negotiate pretty aggressively, and we think we have a really good program based off of the relationships we have with those suppliers. And what I always tell everyone, hey, pick 10 and we do assessments on 10 different contracts. And if 8 of them are great, guess what? Didn't cost you a thing. You go back and say, we kicked butt on those 8 different contracts, but these 2, we were off or didn't have the in-house talent or whatever the situation might be. And, adopt those 2 contracts from us. And I think very few folks offer that type of transparency to say, if we did all that work for you and you picked 0, no harm, no foul. We're here, next 2 months when you have the next 10 or 20 or 30 contracts that you want to look at. And I think that's the most unique thing that I think people think GPO and they think, I'm going to be tied into that contract and I'm stuck and all these different things. We're super flexible, willing to work. We want to be stand side by side with your teams to help whatever that help might be. And so I think it's that simple. And the only other thing too is I drive compliance into this piece is we got 100 folks out in the field that will help you drive compliance at each of those locations too. What I talked about earlier, because that's another thing that you just don't see. So you might have a great contract, great pricing, but if it's not driving that out in the field or out into your different locations, then we're here to help in that regard too, which a lot of our members don't realize that we kind of offer those services as well.
Man, okay. So Greg, one of the things I'm hearing John share there is OMNIA Partners is not your great grandmother's GPO. They do business much differently. So Greg, your thoughts on what John just shared there?
Not your grandfather's Buick, right? Yeah, I think it's even more than that. I hate to keep harping on this, but it's leverage you can never get. It's access, control, negotiation. It's resourcing you can never get to, literally can never get to in your company. And finally, it's free. So why would you not at least give it a try?
And I'll tack one thing else on. So if you're on a contract with us, we have 345 Fortune 1000 customers. The beauty is you got all of those procurement teams watching the pricing, watching the movement increases on that particular contract. So it's not just you in-house. You're sharing that amongst all these other partners or members that are out in the marketplace too. So it's tough to beat.
And not to mention all the ideas that you get. I mean, I think companies, they die for a private club or whatever you want to call it, a club of companies that they could share ideas with, because somebody's business might be completely different than yours, but the value that they can bring to you could be very, very applicable. As a consultant, former reformed consultant, and technology implementer, I saw that literally thousands of times, where you could take a tidbit of knowledge from one industry and apply it to a completely unrelated industry, and really create value. And if you've got thousands of companies and some very big ones, with the capability of do that, you're leveraging that knowledge and expertise and everything when you wouldn't otherwise have the ability to get there. You're operating at a level of sophistication that would just be impossible without the group, right? Yep. So I'm not pitching this thing, by the way. It's just, there are just some things that make so much sense, right? That, we do procurement at Supply Chain Now, right? And we've seen the struggles of selecting the right vendor, of not falling for the sales pitch, of getting the best deal, of getting them to perform after you've signed up with them, and and a horde of other things that I know lots of companies are struggling with out there. And it's just such a great opportunity to have an incredible amount of resources to assure the cost-effective success and growth of your practice. So I don't know. It's kind of like buying QuickBooks. Right? I mean, don't do your accounting on your spreadsheet at home at night, right?
Yes, that's one thing I'm glad no one lets me do is accounting. But John and Greg, and Greg, to your point too, we've been fortunate to rub elbows and really pop the hood and really see how OMNIA Partners does business and the outcomes they drive for a couple of years now. And so it's really cool to meet new folks, new to us, at least with John, and hear his take and his journey, because I love how they have different folks that specialize in different areas, and of course come from different walks of life. We all benefit from that for sure. All right, let me go back here because we got some neat comments here, because we're about to get into how to tackle the spend visibility pain point we've addressed. So Richard says spend visibility can help a business gain control and leverage with suppliers, and thus drive savings or minimize increases in today's world through consolidation and right sizing and more. Ron says spend visibility is the key. You cannot manage and leverage your spend with your suppliers if you don't know how and where you're spending your resources. Excellent point there, Ron. Great to have you here. So John, I'll throw it back to you. When we're talking about the good news and how there's a better way so we can tackle spend visibility. What say you?
Yeah, so I think, we talked a lot of, this earlier, but look, it's a main focus for us. I mean, this is our first meeting with a member or public agency. We ask them questions. How good is your spend visibility? Because we need to be accountable too at OMNIA Partners. And so we want to be able to know what that spend is and how do we make an impact? What is our savings? How are we driving that? And I think there's two ways. Either, look, we got our spend, we got it dialed in, and folks are really confident. And so we approach those type of members one way. And there's another group that we speak with quite often. And they're like, look, we don't have it. We have multiple ERP systems. Do you have any solutions, and what do you have? And we teamed up with Spend HQ as a solution. So if they have good spend visibility, we kind of jump right in with our team and wave planning, and we look for quick wins, and we start working down that process. Or if they don't, we take a step back. We introduce a partner of ours that comes in and starts piping in all the AP feeds, and we work through that process that really shows value for our particular members. And then that's when we start the benchmarking and a bunch of different areas that we go in for cost savings, what's your targets and goals. And then I love it because that puts those targets and goals on my team and holds us accountable to make sure that we're driving value, because that's our ultimate goal for our members.
Greg, your thoughts there?
I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted. What I was distracted by was, John, is there a minimum amount of spend that makes it make sense, at least for you and the resources that you deploy, for a company to join?
We haven't crossed that bridge. We focus mainly in the private sector on the enterprise space, and we're in the top echelon in the public sector space that we're talking to from our field outside sales resources.
Yep.
So I would say $500 million in spend or more. Look, we can go lower than that too, but that's mainly where my team is, and that's where the conversations are starting. But I don't like to turn anything down. We'll help anyone if there's help to be needed.
And the cool thing is it's free for anyone, any business of any size to join. We're gonna tell you all how to do that in just a minute, and to discover what is to be gained, and to really have the conversation. Without the conversation, you what do you gain? Nothing. What's your chances of gaining anything? Nothing.
We're not quite there yet, John, but we're working on it.
We're working.
So give us a year.
That's right, Greg. That is right. We're coming. Just like we're moving at the speed of 1,000 gazelles.
Yes.
Dear friend Dan. Okay, John says. John probably points out what a lot of us are thinking. Maybe interesting and cool model. Buying groups or cooperatives have historically required a financial buy-in from the members, and I love when there's conversations going on within the chat, because Amanda responds directly. You're correct, John. OMNIA Partners is fully transparent about our model. There are no fees or order obligations ever. How about that?
So that creates an inherent alignment with the membership, right? Because there is no motivation to pump membership, to your point, John, to pump membership to get more membership dollars. All of the value has to be accrued to the members by creating efficiencies in the procurement process. So that's a perfectly sensible. I would think maybe the best model out there. Right?
And all the tools that we're driving, whether it's the spend visibility tools or data and analytics and pricing, all that sort of stuff. Todd Adden, our CEO, is passionate about. We are not charging the members anything, because trust me, he gets approached all the time saying, "Why don't you do it?" And it's not who we are. That's why
he knows why. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. And I know we can't get to some folks' questions and comments. I bet, and we're going to make sure y'all know how to connect with OMNIA Partners and John Lander and the whole team. But I bet they welcome those post live stream conversations, don't you, John?
Yes, 100%. Looking forward to it.
We probably ought to do a webinar where we just talk about, this is what OMNIA Partners could do for you, and just field and answer all those questions, because I know there have to be dozens of them out there. We have 400 registrants for this thing. So
We should do an Ask Me Anything with John Lander.
That'd be
Greg.
great.
Maybe not anything, because I would spend the whole time talking about the Steelers.
Steelers, yeah.
That's right.
Kenny Pickett, is he really as good as he seems?
Well, hey, so folks, you'll have to stick with us. We'll have Supply Chain Nerds Talk Sports coming to a screen near you
There
soon.
you go.
But John, so I think folks, we have one of the smartest audiences in the globe, and I bet they've already kind of pieced together what OMNIA Partners does. But for anyone that might be slow out there, kind of like me, right? I'm slow to kind of piece it all together. What does OMNIA Partners do in a nutshell, John?
Yeah, I think if you look at us, what we're trying to do both in public and private, 2 different contract vehicles, broken down by verticals. We have enterprise, we have our corporate space, we have our private equity team, and we have our real estate, which is multifamily housing. We have experts in each of those different categories, and then we have SMEs on the private sector, 150 contracts. So we have experts that can help and work alongside of you from that standpoint. Public sector, same thing, broken down different verticals on that side, 600 plus contracts. And the beauty, what I always say is there's no reason to at least give us a try, because there's no fees. There doesn't cost anything. We'll do assessments, pricing comparisons. We got tons of data and technology for you guys to utilize at your need. And we could take over a whole procurement side, or we can do 2 contracts. There's no issue from us from that standpoint. And so that's the beauty of it. We fit into whatever your business model is, whatever your business plan is. We could work right alongside you. So and plus our culture is great. We have great people. Like, that's half the battle. We're fun. Like, let's have some fun together and solve problems and try to figure it out.
Yes, I'm with you. And the other thing that we, Greg, is you and I have witnessed for the last couple of years, man, OMNIA Partners is evolving. They're evolving. They're growing. The ecosystem's getting bigger and bigger. And I love, again, how based on your need, your sector, your challenge, they leverage different experts with different journeys, bring them to the table to help solve the problem. So let's do this. So Greg, as we have already let the cat out of the bag in the first part, thank you, John. It is free to join. It's free to join. And so that's one of 3 resources that John and the team have brought. And I want to make sure we drop this link. You can find this link in the chat. So you click this link and you'll see right there, you're taken to a landing page where they talk about how easy it is to join. John, it's just that easy, huh?
Yep, absolutely. It is that simple.
Okay.
So,
all right.
You join, there's a membership click through, and basically what that membership is just a quick NDA that we're not going to share any of your information. So, but it's simple, quick sign up, and then depending on what vertical you're in, or what expertise you're looking for, what contracts you're interested in, I have 100 folks on my team that will direct in your direction.
100 folks, man! I got an army, Greg, an army ready to go, huh?
Is that a whole army?
It's at least a couple.
division?
Well, from an Air Force standpoint, it's at least about 5 or 6 flights, I think. I don't know.
There you go. Okay.
So
it's a lot of people, nonetheless.
It's a lot of folks. All right, so that's one of the 3 goodies. We're building a little goodie bag here. So free membership. We've got the link, so y'all check that out. Secondly, they brought this new playbook. That's another great resource. It's entitled, it's like one of our main themes everybody's talking about: spin visibility, clear the chaos, and unlock potential. I love that, how that's been worded. It just brings serenity to my brain. And then finally, John, wait, there's more, Greg and John. We've got an upcoming, speaking of, Greg, hey, was this a trick? Did you know this was coming? We have got a webinar coming up on July 13th with, Reg, right? Reginald Holden.
Yes.
And our old friend, Ara Arslanian, with
Don't
OMNIA
negotiate
Partners.
with Ara. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right. So join us on July 13th at 12 noon Eastern time for the power of spin visibility, a roadmap for success. And man, raise your hand. We could all use more roadmaps, especially proven roadmaps for getting through this VUCA environment that we're all in. All right. So Greg, I'm gonna get your so we just rolled out 3 resources there, and we're gonna make sure folks know how to connect with John in just a second. But how, of those 3 resources, what comes to mind? What's maybe one of your favorite things you've heard here today from John Lander and the OMNIA Partners team?
Well, I think it's not only the visibility, but how they tie that visibility into action, into the leverage of being part of the GPO and of getting results out of it. I think so many companies struggle with visibility. I mean, if you think about it, I don't have to think about it. I literally listen to pitches about it all the time. If you're talking to a technology company, guess what they're pitching?
Yeah.
Visibility, right? So visibility isn't even, I mean, in many instances, it's not even unique anymore. It's what you do with that visibility that makes it different. I mean, if you are struggling with visibility, certainly get it. But quickly on the heels of that, you're going to realize that you need solutions based on that visibility. You need some guidance in order to capitalize on the visibility, on the knowledge that you've just gained. So if you are just getting to visibility, at least have that in the back of your mind. If you've already got visibility, you know you're struggling with it. I see companies all the time who have bought or developed or invested in visibility solutions who are going, now what, right? And the now what is what John was just talking about during this entire discussion. Is there is so much you can utilize that visibility to do to improve your business, and just expect it and get it. And this is a great way to get it. It's just my thought.
I'm with you. I agree with you. And, I love, again, I go back to, and you kind of alluded to it there again, visibility and answers. What's that, Greg? You say the power of the and? What's that phrase that I love so much? You talk about?
Yeah, don't be a slave to the or when you can have the freedom of the and.
Oh, John, isn't that good? Isn't that good, John?
Might steal that one.
Please do. Please do. Visibility and answers. That's where, you find the most trusted and powerful and outcome-driven allies, whether it's in your procurement journey or in your general business journey. So, John, for folks, we rolled out resources there. Of course, those links will live in the comments. Y'all check that out. How can folks, John, connect with you and OMNIA Partners directly?
Yeah, simple. You connect with me on LinkedIn, John Lander at OMNIA Partners, and you could also go omniapartners.com. Simple. All of our contracts are up there today. Again, we talked about full visibility, that we have all of our public sector contracts, private sector contracts, suppliers. So very easy to connect with us. We make it simple, and as soon as you connect, you could even fill something out online. We'll connect with you within 24 hours, someone from my team, to make sure that we're making sure you see all the power OMNIA Partners has.
That is wonderful. And I know we got some great questions in the chat that I'm sure Amanda and John and the whole team will get to later. Great. Thank you for that,
yeah,
Chris.
If your question didn't get answered, make John pay for giving you his one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what a great conversation, John. Really, it's been a pleasure getting to know you in the pre-show, getting an update on all the latest cool things that OMNIA Partners is up to. Greg, the hits keep on coming for John and the team, huh?
Yeah, I'm a hard sell, but I'm 100% sold out on this GPO concept. I just think it's such an area of specialty. It's an incredible area of power. It is so well refined. I think particularly the way OMNIA does it, where the members don't pay, and that really aligns their investment in in the partnership. And I just think there's so much you can gain from it that you just can't do by standing on your own. And those are rare instances. Right, I call them shared scale economies shared, right? Like Costco, and even Costco makes you pay to be a member. I mean, you get great discounts at Costco, but and there are all kinds of other things that are these scale economies shared modeled, and this one is so effective that it's compelling, and it is such a difficult area to manage for so many companies. I just think it's so logical.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you, Greg. I'm with you. And we're also big fans of Costco, by the way. We've uncovered that.
True.
We'll save that.
You see a lot of similarities here, right?
Yeah,
that's a good point. We'll have to save that analysis for another episode. I hadn't thought about it that way. But big thanks to our new friend, John Lander, Executive Vice President Sales, with our old friend OMNIA Partners, who, John, as we're finding out, your ally in the purchasing process. Right, John?
That's it. That's our new tagline. Thanks to the marketing team. And, we're expanding in all areas. So that's what we want to be your ally. So we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us here today. Really appreciate that, John.
Thanks, guys.
Greg, a pleasure to have you as always. Hey, thanks for all the folks that showed up and brought the comments and the questions. I know we couldn't get to all of them. Thank you for being here. Big thanks to our entire team behind the scenes, helping to make production happen as always. But folks, hey, there's this last hour is chock full with ideas that you can act on today. Become a member. It's free. Join the webinar July 13th. Check out that playbook. Connect with John. All that. That's right. Connect with John. Grab that cup of coffee with him, maybe an adult beverage with him and his army, and find a better way forward. Deeds, not words. You got to take action. And with that said, on behalf of our entire team here, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, to give forward, and to be the change. We'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now.
See you guys. Everybody.